What's up guys, and welcome to Oaxaca, Mexico. If you've seen my prior videos, we have the what's going on in video, and that's one of these. So welcome to what's going on in Oaxaca, what's going on in southern Mexico. We're gonna talk a little history, a little politics, a little bit of culture, and we're gonna talk about, more importantly, what makes this place so vibrant, why it's a place you should definitely visit, and why if you're gonna pick 3 Mexican cities, they should be on your list. Let's do it. So before we get into today's video, I made a Patreon, so check out my Patreon link. Any support you guys could have for me and my videos keeps it easier for me for making this content from around the world for you guys. And if you can't do that, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Let's get into the video. So you're probably asking yourself, Pierce, where is Oaxaca? Why should I care about Oaxaca? Why is it important? These are all fair questions, my viewer, and these are things that we'll get into in the video. But I want to tell you first a little bit of the history of this great place, why it's so interesting, why it's so unique. So let's get into it. Behind me, you can see this beautiful, beautiful church. This is called the Iglesia de Santo Domingo de Guzman. This church was started in around the middle of the 1500s and is a symbol of Oaxaca. It's absolutely beautiful. It's Baroque style. It's a really, really cool thing to see. It's actually one of the most, probably the most ornamental churches I've seen in my life. So the story for Oaxaca as it is today really starts with the Spanish colonial period, but that's not where the story starts for Oaxaca, the original story, the pre-Columbian story. So let's talk a bit about that. The Oaxaca state goes back, they say, up to 10,000 years. People have been living in this region, different Mesoamerican peoples over various amounts of time. We went to Monte Albán before, but there are many other prehistoric findings, such as pottery, such as old places that were built that lay in ruins today. And it's an amazing place to see old Mesoamerican culture. It's also an amazing place to be to see how that connects to today's Mexico, its story, as Oaxaca is really the center of indigenous culture here in Mexico, along with the state of Chiapas. You'll find the highest population density of people self-describing as indigenous people. The Oaxaca state is defined by 2 very important indigenous groups, the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs, who both resided in the Central Valley region of the Oaxaca state, or what would be the Oaxaca state today. The name Oaxaca is a Nahuatl word, which is one of the native languages here, and the common pronunciation now comes from this old word which you can see here that comes from that language. The story goes that before the Spanish showed up, you know, we're talking 10,000 years of history, the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs were kind of, you know, butting heads in the region, with the Zapotecs owning most of the land. It wasn't until kind of the later period, right before colonization, that the Aztecs started to make their way down from Tenochtitlan and start to take over the entirety of what we would consider Mexico today. The Aztecs were warring, they wanted tribute, and Montezuma II came here and basically told the Zapotecs that, you know, if you don't pay us tribute and you don't become part of our network of our empire, it's not going to end well. And as the many Mesoamericans knew, it was definitely not the thing to go against the Aztecs. So, long story short, Hernan Cortez shows up in Mexico, conquers the Aztecs, and the Zapotecs knew that it was only a matter of time until they too would become interwoven into the web of Spanish colonialism, which definitely happened. There was 2 short wars in 1522, 1527. The Zapotecs and the Mixtecs, they got taken over, and the Spanish established this city, Oaxaca. It was already a city before, but this became a colonial center of trade for the Spanish, defining it more as what it is today, especially with the regarding architecture, regarding language, and regarding a bit of the culture. You can definitely still find a lot of native influence here. We'll get into what that looks like in modern times, but you cannot talk about anything about Oaxaca City without talking about the Spanish. You guys probably know the story all too well. Spanish came, Europeans came to the Americas, the native population got wiped out by disease, by wars, by the subjugation of the colonial practices, and that's certainly what happened here. They say in the Oaxaca Valley there was something like 1.5 million indigenous people, and that got dwindled down to just about 150,000 indigenous people over a series of time. They actually had so little people here that they had to import African slaves from the Spanish Indies, and also from the Spanish slave trade in Africa. And so here in the southern part of the Oaxacan state, you can find Costa Chica, which is mostly what they would call Afro-Latino, which you can still see in the people today. So fast forwarding a bit, Spanish colonials arrive, they go from Mexico, they go all the way down to Chile, they change the entire region, they make the Mesoamericans, the Central Americans, the Southern American Indians, you know, it totally changes the landscape and the culture. It wasn't until the Mexican independence in the early 1800s from the Spanish Empire, when it's kind of started to fall apart, that things really started to change, and where the story of Oaxaca becomes so interesting. Oaxaca was always an important part of Mexico and preserving its culture, but two people from Oaxaca really shaped the Mexican state as we see it today. These two people are Benito Juarez, the first president of Mexico, and the most important figure during the Reforma Wars, which made Mexico into the modern state it is today, as well as Porfirio Diaz, who was also a president after and was also important in shaping current Mexican politics as we see it. Benito Juarez was such a beloved figure that here in Oaxaca they actually renamed the city when they really founded the state that became part of the United States of Mexico to Oaxaca de Juarez. You can also find the Benito Juarez airport in many different Mexican cities, as well as the city of Juarez, which is a border town, which is not known for being the best city in Mexico, but it's a place that many people do know. So this was the dude, this was that guy that really unified Mexico and was a figure that everybody respected. And for Oaxaqueños, people from Oaxaca, he is the most important symbol and really put Oaxaca City on the map as a place for culture, for learning, for exchange, and especially for politics. Fast forwarding to more recent events. Oaxaca is a city of architecture, a city of art, a city of culture, and a city that is esteemed in its background of indigenous things. Like, it's still a really, really important part of the culture here, and this is one of the most important places probably in the entire Americas for representing Native culture so strongly and having it be a part of not only the subculture but the mainstream here, which is super cool. Everywhere you go in the region, you'll see beautiful art, you'll see beautiful textiles, something like this. You'll see people actually speaking the language, and there's actually a farmer's market here that's only on Sundays that you can actually see all of the native farmers. They come from around the entire Oaxaca state. They meet in the only time where they can really get together and be a community, you know, because people live quite rurally. And you'll probably won't hear so many people speaking Spanish. It's very interesting. So now that we've covered the history, what's going on in Oaxaca? What's going on in Mexico? What's going on here is the question. Is it safe? The answer to that is complicated. Mexico is a country that has very, very deep problems. Starts with the politics, starts with the narco trafficking, starts with the cartels, starts with the corruption, starts with lots of different various details. That being said, Oaxaca is really important for indigenous rights when it comes to making sure that they are addressed in the political system. And so that's what makes this place so important and so interesting in general, is that Oaxaca is really a representative of large minority groups, and they're also in charge of a lot of representation of the original founding ideas, the place that Benito Juarez was from. And so people are always very interested in what's happening in Oaxaca politically. As we stand in the city center of Oaxaca, this is called the Zocalo. A Zocalo is a place that typically has a church. It has a little plaza. People come and trade and do things here. It's the tourist center. There's a big protest. So here you can see tents, and they're basically protesting. There's paramilitary issues in a lot of these states, especially the ones that are mostly occupied by indigenous communities. The paramilitary are in charge of a lot of negative things, violence against women, violence against citizens, and there's this big problem with water rights in Mexico, where they've actually privatized their water and electricity companies, and so some communities in this region are unable to actually get water on their land without having to pay some sort of tax for it, which is actually unbelievable considering they have drought problems here. They have a lot of issues, so very, very sketchy. these paramilitary groups are often not connected to the Oaxacan state police, but they're connected to the federal police and police that are employed by the government in Mexico City. Oftentimes these paramilitary troops are actually employed by private companies, whether it's the water companies, companies that own land, and they kind of work extrajudicially, meaning that they kind of operate outside the law, and it creates havoc for the local people here. So in solidarity with those people here in Oaxaca, they've set up kind of tents, you know, talking about the stories of Native people, telling the stories of extrajudicial violence that's been carried out against these people, and it's basically a stand of solidarity. It's very, very interesting. But one thing to definitely know about Mexico is this is happening, and not enough people are talking about it. This is saying that it's the anniversary of the recommendation that was signed into law for the basically autonomy and exit of the paramilitary and federal officials. The problem is that they haven't left, and this is still an issue. So they're trying to raise awareness by having this here in the city center, and very, you know, feel for it. I don't like paramilitary forces. It's sketchy. Is Oaxaca safe? Absolutely. The city itself feels really safe. Mexico has the most militarized police I have ever seen in my life. Like, these dudes look like they're ready to go to battle at any moment. This is something you can find in Mexico City as well as any other large Mexican city. You know, like really militarized police. The Mexican government has been taking the, I guess you could call it the cartel issue, quite seriously, and in a lot of cities they've been able to kind of fight out the drug dealers and fight out the people who are really in charge of narco trafficking, using the police presence. Some people may say that's all for show. Some people may say the police are actually corrupt and will rob you as well. Totally possible. Don't drink in public in Mexico. It's a great way to get robbed by the police, and I've heard many stories of stuff like that. But in general, there's a lot of Mexican cities you can go to that are safe. You just need to be aware. If you speak Spanish, it's really good, because if you look like a tourist, sometimes, you know, you could be at harm for, you know, the worst thing being pickpocketing or something like that. But if you're in a, you know, one of the red states like that you shouldn't go to, like maybe Tabasco, I've heard is a tough state, or Chihuahua, these kind of places that are important for the drug trade to the north, it's always good to just be on guard, and you should definitely speak Spanish if you go to these places. Mexico, just like any place during the COVID time, seems to have been hit reasonably hard, as Mexico really relies on their tourist economy. So a city like Cancun, which normally would be a little bit safer for tourists, felt a little sketchy. But here in Oaxaca, it's a big place for Mexican tourists and for tourists from the region. So totally feels very normal. Lots of people out, so much good street food, so many good vibes. The architecture is beautiful. I can't tell you enough about how amazing this place is. So if you found this helpful, tell me in the comments below. I like doing these what's going on videos, and it's something that I feel I can definitely put out for the travel community. So if you liked the video and you found it interesting, helpful, totally wrong, you have a different opinion on Oaxaca, you have a different opinion on Mexico, definitely let me know in the comments. Make sure to, of course, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. That really helps me out on my channel. And we have a lot more cool content. We're gonna do an amazing street food tour of the night market here in Oaxaca next. You're gonna see the amazing food culture. I didn't want to get into it too much in this video because we have many, many more videos coming. So stay tuned, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you the next time. Hasta luego de Oaxaca.